Hello. I have a question for you. What do you fear most? Is it health issues? Is it aging? Is it very high Hungarian taxes to pay? Is it other money issues? Is it losing someone you love? Is it shame? Or is it maybe public speaking? In a sense, these fears are all common. These are all about the subconscious fear of change, a fear that a lot of us in this big room unknowingly share, a fear of falling into situations we do not like, or leaving situations we do like. It would be very difficult to find a more relevant topic today in a world of accelerating changes than the psychology of change. Just think of the mobile phones. How much development was running in the last 20 years. Compare the huge, heavy, bulky mobile phones of the past to the smartwatches that you have on your wrist now. Or think of email, how it has changed our working methods, how it has increased our relationship with our colleagues, the range of colleagues we are in contact with, or how it has increased the speed of our communication. But how do we deal with the new expectation to answer any business question in a second? How do we like 24/7 availability? Or how do we cope with the fact that we really cannot leave work at the workplace because it comes with us? Or look at something bigger. Look at the differences between our lifestyle and our parents' lifestyle. Fewer early marriages, if any. Fewer children and later. Fewer untreatable illnesses. And a lot more traveling, access to any kind of information anytime, and a huge range of amazing and exotic hobbies and sports to choose from. And what would this difference be like if we would compare us to our children or our grandchildren? Will they have driving licenses or not at all because of the self-driving cars? Or will they be able to teleport? Will they be able to transplant their brain once their old body gets too old to hold it? We might conclude that we are the generation going through tremendous changes. However, in contemporary psychology, change is not really well explained yet. How many of you are familiar with the 5 stages of grief or the 5 stages of change? Yes, many. Okay. It was created by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in 1969. And it's an amazing model to help people to acknowledge the various and controversial feelings of a change process. There is, of course, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance at the end. Doesn't sound really tempting. And this model has been used since that in change management science as a basis for change management-related models, although it leaves some very important questions unanswered. How can I go through this process very fast? Are all these phases really needed, or is there a way to skip 1 or 2 or 3? Is there a way for me or for us to learn to change easily? And another question, how has our life changed since 1969, when this model was created? So we might conclude that we need to change the theory of change. We would need to have something that is more relevant, more practical, and more focused, and more fresh. And that's where we come into the picture. I work for Invention Factory, an organizational development company, which is the proud and exclusive agent of the Organoco method. Organoco is as yet a little-known approach. It was created by Szilárd Mosonyi, a notable trainer, coach, and change expert in Hungary. Organoco was born from his dedication to discover how can people change easily. And the method, of course, has a wide range of sources. And don't worry, we are not getting into all the details. But to keep it short, on one hand, it has its sources in modern psychology, and it's using the latest outcomes of modern science, like biology, neurology, or even physics. But most importantly, it's based on a long research process, which is more than 10 years, and impacts more than 500 people who have been observed through longer, bigger life change processes. So let's just look at some viewpoints from this system. Let's jump into the new theory of change. No change in itself gives a sense of security. This is a very powerful statement. Let it sink. It shows itself in very logical situations. Like when I'm just considering, or anyone is considering, changing jobs, obviously, keeping the same job what we have now is security. Because we know everything about it. We know the challenges, we know the circumstances, we know the colleagues. And any new job has its risks. But this model shows itself in twisted situations too. Like, there is some research done on people who were in abusive relationships. They are significantly more likely to select another life partner who is abusive. How is that possible? Willingly, they wouldn't want to. So there needs to be something behind that links this security to no change. And there is another side of this coin. Change in itself is linked to anxiety, or to some kind of worries at least. Just think of how many changes do we experience in everyday life now? And how open are we to these changes? If change is linked to anxiety, anytime my sense of security falters, I will stop and grab onto the things I have around me. I will grab the people I have around me, I will grab the techniques I'm using, and I will grab any habit I have, be it bad or good. This is what we call the security of no change. But think about it, how risky is it in business life? When a big crisis comes, most companies stop spending on innovation, or marketing, or human resources. When someone is promoted to a position he thinks or she thinks is too much for him or her, micromanagement occurs. Or when we are just thinking of restructuring the way our working team is working, it can seem to be a huge risk. So it's time to move out from this false security of no change. And to move out from here, let's redefine change. Mostly, on a subconscious level, we think of change as a route from A to B. It means that it can be translated like a situation when I burn the bridges, sing the ferries, and say goodbye to A forever. And in this case, I will want to make sure that B is really better. This is where the long and stressful consideration begins. This is where I ask for a second or a third business analysis from my consultant team when we are just considering to invest somewhere. It's not really motivating to go through a change in this sense. And what happens when I need to move from B to C? In this aspect, in this approach, all the consideration begins from the very beginning again. So, it would be great to have another definition for the change. What if I think of change simply as just a bigger number of options? Like, instead of living in a small flat, having the access to a huge building with all the apartments in it. In this case, I can remain in the flat if I want to. I can move anywhere else, and I can return anytime. So in this understanding of the change, all my recent choices remain available. I just have more others on top. There is no long consideration then. There is no pain. There is no worry. I can change my mind anytime, and I can adapt to new situations with ease. But how come it's so difficult to remember this broader definition in everyday life? A vast number of observations show that human behavior is highly habitual. Or let me be more direct, it's highly predictable. I like to think of myself as a real Indiana Jones character who is absolutely not predictable, who travels the world, who has an exciting job, who meets new people at new places all the time. But, as László Barabási says, according to a research, 93% of the time, my location is precisely predictable. Predictability can be a sign that there is somehow a coded no-change rule in human behavior, which just keeps us with our habits. Although on the surface, contemporary culture empowers entrepreneurs, adventure seekers, go-getters. None of them we think of as predictable. So how then do we keep ourselves in this habitual mood? It should be a hidden process. I avoid information that would move me out from my habits. This is what we call blind spots. I create and maintain blind spots. Did it ever happen to you that you know that you could find out something earlier, but somehow you didn't want to? Like relationships with the wrong girl or with the wrong guy, or recruitment decisions when you had the gut feeling which said no and you just didn't follow it, or business decisions you were somehow not okay with and turned out to be complete disasters at the end. Well, the blind spots were working very well. On a subconscious level, the easiest way to create and maintain these blind spots is to filter and distort information. It sounds completely crazy. This is why we pretend it is not happening. But just think of how social media filters information for us based on our search history, purchase history, or like history. Or think of what an information filtering it is to spend our time with like-minded people who share the same interests, the same values, and same opinions than us, and who we call our friends. Or what information distortion happens in politics every day. But let me be more provocative. What if information filtering and distortion would happen anyhow? And what if we approach it as a generic, hidden human process? If it's so, it needs to be running in the background. And if it runs in the background, it can be explained by simultaneous intentions running. I mean, I am more than my conscious intentions. Consciously, for instance, I might have the intention to be a great innovator. That's conscious. But what if in the background I think that I would like to keep my friendship with the people who are important for me? And I'm just worried, what would it be like to be always on the television or everywhere in the media and living the high life? How could we maintain our relationship? This question is not necessarily conscious. A company is way more than its conscious intentions. Like, it might say that, okay, the company wants to grow double digit. That's always conscious. But what if in the background the real company culture dictates that we earn recognition by hard work only? And what if an opportunity comes which doesn't require hard work? How would this hidden rule influence the company's decisions? So there is something more than the conscious. And that's what we call basically in our system the subconscious. So in the Organoco method, subconscious means all the intentions or all the things, the constantly changing collection of things that I hide from myself. And why? Because these are abnormalities, these are controversions, what I do not want to face, or these are just opposite intentions. And by maintaining the subconscious, I can easily avoid meeting my own opposite intentions. Just think of the concept of self-sabotage. Have you ever met someone who wanted to have a really good life, but you could see from the outsider point of view very clearly what this person does to kill all the chances that would lead to this good life? This is self-sabotage. This is the subconscious working very well. But let me show you another new perspective. Because at the previous slide, at the self-sabotage, I missed something very important, and it's not the previous, but this is the previous, yeah. So let me show you a new perspective. And it's about the reason why the subconscious exists. Because in a sense, subconscious wants to prevent me to face my own opposite intentions. And in a sense, it just wants to keep me safe. According to the model number 1, what you might remember, no change was linked to security, and security was linked to no change. So to keep me safe for the subconscious is to keep me not changing. But subconscious is not an enemy. It's just like an overprotective parent who wants to care for a toddler and does everything possible. So subconscious is basically just parenting us all the time. And it does it in tricky ways. And same as with most parents, when there is peace and things are going very well, the rules get much more flexible. But the new perspective is, what if the existence of the subconscious or the existence of my own opposite intentions is explained by something else than the strive for security only? What if we would approach human behavior as something explained by a hidden drive to never be bored, to always be busy with something? Do you have a colleague, maybe, who is constantly running after deadlines? Or have you ever wondered, how come you cannot fall asleep at night because your mind is so full of thoughts? All these things could be explained by an intention to never to be bored. And to never be bored can be done in various ways. The first and most profound way is to be in action, like to jump from that cliff, to have that interesting discussion with someone, or to cuddle with our loved ones. But we are not always in action though, but still busy with something. The second route is to evaluate the past or prepare for the future. This is when I'm labeling things, if I'm satisfied or unsatisfied. This is when I'm making plans. This is when I'm making promises. And there is a third route to keep ourselves busy, and it's the internal movie. In other words, this is the capacity for me to create for myself any kind of misery, anytime. There will be no silence in my mind for sure. I can imagine situations like tomorrow we might have a meeting with a horrible client that would end up in a very difficult discussion. I would lose my temper, and at the end of this discussion I would find myself on the street with an unpaid mortgage. Or for the internal movies, I can use my reckless friends, I can use my demanding colleagues, or very simply, for these movies, I can use the latest BBC news and the possible economic consequences. So I can keep myself busy or entertained anytime. And there is another important aspect here to talk about. The ways I experience the world while I keep myself very busy can be various. There are tons of forms I see the world at certain moments. Usually I only use one at a given moment. In the organ ecosystem, we call these the forms of excitement. Or we can simply explain these as colorful sunglasses that completely define how do I see my external or internal world. Among the sunglasses, there are more stressful ones, like survival, fight, or drama, and there are less stressful ones, like creation, play, or love. But which one would you choose? If you could vote, would you go for creation or fight? Consciously, you would say, of course, create. But what if the majority of people would very simply go for a more habitual way, like drama, for instance, if this is what they are used to? Because in a way, it seems that there is a hidden drive in human behavior to select our preferred sunglasses. We all have our selection of sunglasses we are ready to use for given situations. And it seems once we pick one, it's somehow sticky, and it remains, and we like to pick it again and again. And Shakespeare might be right that the world is a stage, because these dramas work out in a company environment as well. Teams have their preferred sunglasses. Teams have their preferred excitement forms. What would it be like for a team to move from the habitual survival, fight, or drama selection of sunglasses to something more enjoyable, more practical, more successful? I would imagine like creative, open, and honest discussions to replace time-killer meetings. I would imagine people who are dedicated to make a company growing without internal barriers that would stop or slow down the growth. And I would imagine performance which is rooted in interest, in self-motivation and joy, instead of expectations, punishment, or praising. So it has a huge importance what is the selection of a team's typical excitement forms. And it has a huge importance, it's of huge importance to move away from the not so helpful selections to something better. So let's summarize where we are now. As we said, we have more intentions, like human beings, like teams, like companies as well. Of course, we have the conscious, and as we discussed, we have the subconscious and an intention to never to be bored and always to be busy with something. We might start wondering what is the importance of these factors. And what my ego would like to answer is that, of course, there is a dominance of the conscious with some slight hints from the other two. But what if it is in reverse order? What if the intention to be busy, always in every single moment, rules? And due to the security of no change, if you remember, there is a tendency to keep our preferred sunglasses. So to keep ourselves busy in habitual ways is the most important intention in human behavior, on personal and on company level alike. For me, this approach makes situations much more understandable. Or, for me, this approach, it makes it easier to influence situations that I couldn't influence before. Why? Because as long as I think of myself or the results of my actions as a combination of my conscious intentions plus the environment, there will be always some sort of unknown, where the luck or the lack of luck defines the outcome. In this organoco model, we have 4 components. So beside the conscious, we have the subconscious, we have the never to be bored as well, and there is, of course, the environment. And with these 4 components, I get 2 new to play with. As long as I treat the world in the previous version as 2-dimensional, I do some gambling. But how many of you would bet your job, your house, or all your knowledge on a roulette table? Not many, I think. By nature, we are not gamblers. But as long as it's only 2-dimensional, there is something like gambling in it. With the 4 dimensions, we get 2 new areas to play with. There is the subconscious, which wants to keep me safe, so I can give it security. And there is the chronic need to be busy with something, so I can select what kind of sunglasses I would like to apply. And think of organizations again. What would happen if a company would increase the overall sense of security of employees, and on the top of it, would provide lots of exciting working opportunities? What I imagine is that the factor of chance or luck would be visibly reduced. It would mean there could be amazing business results available. So, let me summarize. If you remember only 2 things from this presentation, remember these. Number 1, higher level of security increases change security. And security can be increased anyhow, depending on the people you are concentrating on. It can be a clearer business strategy, it can be a safer work environment, or it can be a more transparent leader. If the sense of security grows, as a positive side effect, the willingness to change whatever needs to be changed because of logical reasons grows as well. And there is another message, message number 2. Change can be easy. Change can be enjoyable, as we at Invention Factory believe. So my message for you today is to redefine change, the way we did it at the beginning of the presentation, and don't resist it anymore. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. So we'll jump into questions in just 1 second, but before we do that, I wanted to mention one thing. Monica's company has very generously offered to do some free coaching sessions out here. The coaches are next to the coat check, and if you want, you can sign up for a 45-minute session, is it? Yeah. And you can work through some of this Organico method on that, and that'll be from 12 to 1800 today, and 9 to 1200 tomorrow. So if you're interested in that, please do sign up at the next break. And we have a few questions here. So how do you call out someone to realize that they sabotage themselves? If you're intending to help, especially in the light of the previous talk,
Yeah.
you know, about not being able to change people. How do you deal with that?
Well, we have been talking a lot about the importance of the sense of security. So if I judge someone, or if I'm not, if I judge someone, I might harm the sense of security. So I might draw anyone's attention to any fact, that's true, but it's very important how do I do it. So if this self-sabotage is not a judged action from an external point of view, but I share my emotions, my concerns, so I'm talking about myself and my willingness to be there for the other person, it can be a very good discussion and a fruitful one. But if I don't do it like this and judge it and just face the fact, come on and change, so this is the message what I transmit, it might not be that helpful.
And there's where you're going to get that pushback.
Yeah.
Okay. One more. In business, just like in relationships, you don't get to keep all options and have to commit to one or another. How does the multiple options theory apply in that situation?
The multiple option theory is a tricky theory because it's not about, it's not about considering all the options on every single meeting with 100 people sitting around me. Rather use it as a method to use your brain. So before you engage into any situation, you can select this kind of working method of the brain that, I'm open to any options that might come up in the discussions or that might come up in my mind. It means that my previous experiences are not limiting the way of thinking what I'm following. So it can be rather an internal approach. And once, like every single person has this internal approach in a discussion, the discussion can be very fruitful, it can be very quick, it can be very efficient. Mm-hmm. We are just keeping ourselves completely open to our new thoughts and to others' new thoughts. And that, at the end, creates a higher level of creativity of the team.
All right. Great. Well, thank you very much. Oh, we got one more coming up. You mentioned the negative and high stress reactions, drama, fight, etc., to situations. Are there lower stress reactions do you think we should encourage?
Certainly everyone wants to feel herself and himself better. So these sunglasses, these excitement forms can be very stressful, as it was mentioned, and less stressful. There are two ways. On one hand, if, like for a team or for a person, a given excitement form is very strongly rooted. So this person likes to be in fight or likes to be in drama. And that's like a basic, normal behavior in many, many cases. We can go into the direction to make it a little bit more playful. So not to take it that seriously. Mm-hmm. And if there is some play in that, the drama itself can be enjoyable for the person. So the person can experience the emotions and everything, but with a playful attitude. So that's one way to move out.
Their emotions almost externally.
Mm-hmm. And the other way is that we can actually change these excitement forms. So there is the ability in everyone to change it, but there is a natural resistance to not do it. But it can be encouraged. There are techniques, there are exercises for this as well. Like when we are in a meeting and we just realize that the whole team is in drama, survival, and problem-solving mood, and we don't go anywhere. We can do any time when we know something of this method to move everyone for another excitement form, which is targeting. And then we just agree that, okay, in 5 minutes, we close the discussion, we target on the end result. And then we get much more effective again. So we can change excitement forms, or we can make the same excitement forms much more playful.
Great, great. Well, thank you very much. And
thank you.
Media's got a little gift for you over there, and appreciate it.